My wife forgot to end the call. What I overheard changed everything. Marcus Chen was 36 years old when his entire world shattered on a Wednesday morning in September, and he didn't discover his wife's betrayal through a suspicious text message or a lipstick-stained collar. He learned the truth because Diana forgot to end a FaceTime call. He was sitting in his home studio in Portland's Hawthorne neighborhood, editing footage from a documentary about immigrant-owned small businesses in the Pacific Northwest. The morning light streamed through his window, casting soft shadows across the editing monitors. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, forgotten as he worked through a particularly emotional interview with a Vietnamese restaurant owner who'd fled Saigon as a child. Marcus was lost in the work, the way he always was, trimming frames, adjusting color, finding the story within the story. Then his laptop chimed. Diana's face filled the screen for a split second before the camera angle shifted awkwardly upward, showing nothing but the ceiling of what looked like a coffee shop. White acoustic tiles, a slowly rotating ceiling fan, the ambient noise of a busy morning, espresso machines hissing, chairs scraping against floors, the low murmur of conversation. Marcus reached for his mouse to end the call. Diana must have accidentally initiated it while putting her phone in her purse. It happened sometimes. He was about to click the red button when he heard her voice. God, Rachel, I can't do this much longer. Marcus's hand froze mid-air. Something in her tone, exhausted, frustrated, desperate, made his stomach tighten with a feeling he couldn't name yet. Not quite fear, not quite dread, something in between. He pulled his hand back from the mouse and turned up the volume. How much longer until you file? Another voice, female, Rachel Park, Diana's best friend since their freshman year at the University of Oregon. Her business partner at the boutique marketing agency they'd launched 3 years ago, building it from nothing into a thriving practice with high-profile clients across Portland's creative community. There was a pause. Marcus heard the clink of a spoon against ceramic, the scrape of a chair being pulled closer to a table. January, Diana said, her voice clearer now, closer to her phone. My lawyer said right after the holidays is perfect timing. Better optics for the judge, apparently. Plus, Marcus will be so busy with his film festival submission that he won't see it coming until it's too late. The room tilted. Marcus gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles going white. The words didn't make sense at first. They were just sounds, syllables, noise. His brain refused to process them into meaning because the meaning was impossible. The meaning would break everything. Diana. Rachel's voice carried a note of caution, maybe concern, maybe excitement. Are you really going through with this? Diana laughed. That sound. God, that sound. It was her laugh, the one Marcus had fallen in love with 9 years ago at a gallery opening in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. She'd been standing in front of a photograph of Mount Rainier at sunset, and when he'd made some awkward comment about the composition, she'd laughed. Crystalline, musical, like wind chimes in summer. But this laugh was different. Sharp, cold, nothing like wind chimes. Rachel, you should see your face right now, Diana said, still laughing. Don't look at me like that. We both know this marriage has been dead for years. I'm just finally pulling the plug. Does he know that? Rachel asked carefully. Marcus doesn't know anything. Diana's voice carried a dismissive edge that made Marcus's chest constrict. He's so lost in his little documentary projects and his artistic integrity and his social impact bullshit that he barely notices I exist anymore. Last month, I told him I was going to San Francisco for a client pitch. Do you know what he said? He said, "That's great, babe, good luck," and kissed me goodbye and went right back to editing. Didn't even ask which client. Didn't ask to see the proposal. Nothing. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. That San Francisco trip, he remembered it. Diana had come back excited, energized, talking about how the pitch went perfectly, how the client loved their ideas and wanted to move forward with a 6-month contract. He'd taken her to Bamboo Sushi on Southeast Hawthorne to celebrate. Her favorite place. They'd shared sake and salmon nigiri and she'd told him about the presentation, about Rachel's brilliant strategy, about how proud she was of what they'd built together. It had been a good night. Or so he'd thought. So where were you actually? Rachel's question hung in the air. Marcus held his breath. Napa Valley, Diana said, and her voice changed. Softened. Went dreamy in a way that made Marcus's stomach turn. With Blake. We rented a villa for the weekend. Wine tasting at 3 different vineyards. Couples massage at some ridiculously expensive spa. Dinner at the French Laundry. Do you know how hard it is to get reservations there? Blake knows the sommelier. We ate for 3 hours, Rachel. 3 hours. It was absolutely perfect. The words landed like punches. Each one precise, devastating. He makes me feel alive again, Diana continued. Like I matter. Like I'm more than just the wife of some struggling filmmaker who thinks making art about poverty and immigration is more important than making actual money. Struggling filmmaker. The words hit Marcus harder than the affair itself. He made $85,000 a year from his documentary work, corporate video projects, and teaching 2 classes at Portland State University. They lived comfortably in a renovated Craftsman in Hawthorne that he'd spent 6 months restoring with his own hands. They took road trips up the coast every summer. They never worried about bills or groceries or making rent. They had savings. They had security. But he'd always been careful with money. Conservative. There was a reason for that. A reason he'd planned to reveal on their 10th anniversary next summer. A reason Diana knew nothing about. How long have you and Blake been? Rachel trailed off, leaving the question unfinished. Almost a year, Diana said, casual as discussing the weather. Since last October. Remember that networking event for creative entrepreneurs at the Jupiter Hotel? The one with the rooftop cocktail party? That's where we met. He was there promoting his newest restaurant, the one that just opened in the Pearl District. We started talking about branding and marketing, and he asked if I wanted to grab coffee and discuss a potential contract for his restaurant group. Marcus remembered that night. Diana had come home late, after 11, smelling like gin and tonic and cigarette smoke from the rooftop. She'd been buzzing with energy, talking about all the connections she'd made, the potential clients, the opportunities for the agency. She'd kissed him and said she was lucky to have someone who believed in her dreams. He'd believed her. Of course he'd believed her. Blake owns 3 restaurants in the Pearl District, Rachel. 3. His newest place, Ember, got written up in Bon Appetit last month. The critic called it a revelatory dining experience. He drives a Tesla Model S, lives in one of those new high-rise condos overlooking the Willamette with floor-to-ceiling windows and a private balcony. And he actually knows how to enjoy success instead of apologizing for it like Marcus does. A year. Marcus's hands were shaking. A full year while he'd been planning their 10th anniversary trip. While he'd been cooking her favorite meals and asking about her day and supporting her business dreams and writing terrible poetry because she'd once mentioned she thought it was romantic. While he'd been filming her agency's promotional videos for free and designing her website and being proud of everything she'd built. A year while she'd been building an entirely separate life. Marcus is a good guy, though, Rachel said quietly. There was something in her voice, hesitation? Guilt? Doesn't this feel what? Wrong? Diana cut her off, and the hardness in her voice made Marcus flinch. You know what feels wrong, Rachel? Being 34 years old and living like we're broke college students because my husband is too proud to take commercial work that pays real money. Do you know what Blake did last week? He asked if we needed investment capital for the agency. Just asked, casual as anything. Said he could write us a check for $200,000 if it would help us scale faster. Marcus heard Rachel's sharp intake of breath. $200,000, Rachel. Can you imagine what we could do with that kind of capital? The clients we could pursue? The team we could build? The office space we could afford instead of working out of your apartment? Wait, Rachel said. Blake wants to invest in our agency? He will, Diana corrected. Once I'm divorced and we're together officially. He said it wouldn't be appropriate while I'm still married, which, honestly, shows more integrity than most people have. It's one of the things I love about him. He has boundaries, standards. Marcus almost laughed at that. Almost. Blake had boundaries and standards. Blake, who was sleeping with a married woman. Blake, who was helping her plan her divorce. Blake, who had integrity. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. My lawyer says because I've been working full-time building the agency while Marcus focused on his career, I should get spousal support plus half of everything, Diana continued, her voice taking on a calculating edge that Marcus had never heard before. The house alone is worth $650,000 now. Even after the mortgage, that's over $300,000 in equity. Half of that is mine. The house. Marcus looked around his studio, the room he'd built himself in what used to be an unfinished attic space. He'd spent weekends teaching himself carpentry, watching YouTube tutorials on framing walls and installing electrical. He'd carried sheets of drywall up 2 flights of narrow stairs. He'd sanded and painted and built custom shelves for his equipment. Diana had complained the entire time about the mess, about eating takeout for months, about not being able to have friends over while the house was torn apart. But he'd done it for her. For them, for the family he thought they'd start in that house someday. Does Blake know you're planning all this? Rachel asked. Of course he knows. We've talked about everything. He's been amazing, actually, so supportive. Diana's voice warmed. He helped me find the lawyer. Coached me on what to document, what to say, how to build a case. He went through a divorce 2 years ago, so he knows the game inside and out. The game, that's what this was to her. A game, strategy, tactics, moves and countermoves. Blake says Marcus's biggest weakness is that he's too trusting, Diana continued. Too naive. He believes everyone operates with the same integrity he does, the same honesty. Which makes this easy, honestly. Marcus won't fight. He'll probably just accept whatever I propose because he'll be too devastated to think straight. Too trusting. Too naive. Marcus blinked hard, his vision blurring. He'd trusted her completely, given her access to every bank account, every credit card, every financial decision. Put her name on everything because that's what you did when you loved someone. When you believed they loved you back. What about the film festival thing? Rachel asked. Didn't Marcus just get accepted to Sundance? Isn't that, like, a huge deal? There was a pause. Marcus could hear Diana taking a sip of something, coffee, probably. Her usual oat milk latte with an extra shot. It's his first feature documentary, yeah, Diana said dismissively. He's been working on it for 3 years. Something about immigrant communities in the Pacific Northwest, Vietnamese families, Chinese families, stories about survival and identity and the American dream. Her tone dripped with boredom, with contempt. Rachel, I've sat through so many hours of rough cuts. So many interviews with people I don't know, talking about problems I don't care about, all while Marcus goes on and on about artistic vision and social impact and telling stories that matter. Like any of it pays the mortgage. Marcus thought about those 3 years. The families who'd trusted him with their stories, Mr. Nguyen, who'd fled Saigon with his wife and 3 children in 1975, arriving in Portland with nothing and building a successful pho restaurant. Mrs. Chen, who'd immigrated from Hong Kong in the 80s and started a dry cleaning business that put all 4 of her kids through college. The Martinez family, who'd crossed the border from Mexico and built a construction company that employed 50 people. Their stories mattered. They mattered to Marcus. He thought they mattered to Diana too. But if it does well at Sundance, Rachel pressed, doesn't that mean distribution? Money? Recognition? Diana laughed again. That same sharp, cold sound. If it does well, and that's a big if, maybe he gets distribution. Maybe it makes some money in a year or 2, after festival runs and marketing and all the bullshit that goes into releasing a documentary. Meanwhile, Blake's newest restaurant pulled in $40,000 last weekend. One weekend, Rachel, do you see the difference? Do you see why I can't keep doing this? Marcus saw the difference. He saw it clearly now. Diana measured worth in dollars and status. In Tesla Model S's and penthouse condos and restaurants written up in Bon Appetit. She measured love in what it could buy her, not in what it meant. When are you telling him? Rachel's voice was barely audible through the laptop speakers now, as if she'd leaned back in her chair, putting distance between herself and the conversation. After Sundance, Diana said. February, probably. The festival is mid-January, and he'll be riding high from the premiere, thinking his career is finally taking off, thinking everything is coming together. He'll be emotional and optimistic and vulnerable. My lawyer said that's the perfect time to strike. Catch him when he's not thinking clearly, when he's too overwhelmed to process everything. He'll be more likely to be generous with the settlement. Strike. Like this was warfare. Like Marcus was an enemy to be defeated rather than a husband to be respected. Plus, Diana continued, if the documentary actually does well, that's marital property too. Any future earnings, any distribution deals, any streaming rights, I could get a percentage of all of it. My lawyer is already drawing up clauses to cover intellectual property created during the marriage. The calculation in her voice was breathtaking. This wasn't a woman struggling with a difficult decision. This wasn't confusion or doubt or a moment of weakness. This was strategy, premeditated, methodical, ruthless. God, Diana, Rachel said, and she was laughing now too. You're cold, like, legitimately cold. I'm practical, Diana corrected. There's a difference. I've wasted 9 years on someone who chose poverty and principles over ambition and success. 9 years of living below our potential because Marcus is too busy being noble to actually get ahead. I'm not wasting another day. I'm not going to be 40 years old and still waiting for him to figure out that artistic integrity doesn't pay for retirement. 9 years, wasted. That's how she saw their marriage. Their life together. Every moment, every memory, every shared dream, all of it wasted time. Marcus's phone was recording everything. He hadn't moved in 20 minutes, hadn't breathed properly, Hadn't done anything except listen to his wife dismantle their entire marriage like it was a failed business venture. What if he fights the divorce? Rachel asked. What if he doesn't just accept your terms? Diana's laugh was confident now. Certain. He won't. Marcus hates conflict. He's a people pleaser, always has been. He'll probably just accept whatever I propose because he'll be too devastated to argue, too heartbroken to fight back. That's what Blake said. People like Marcus, they're so busy being noble and fair and ethical that they let themselves get destroyed. They don't have the killer instinct to actually protect themselves. Marcus felt something shift inside him. The pain was still there, raw and bleeding and all-consuming. But underneath it, something harder was forming. Something cold and focused and absolutely clear. Besides, Diana continued, I've been documenting everything. Every time he stayed up late editing instead of coming to bed. Every weekend he spent working on his film instead of taking me somewhere. Every vacation we didn't take because he had a deadline or a grant application or a festival submission. I'll paint myself as the neglected wife who tried everything while he chased impossible dreams. I'll make him look like the one who abandoned the marriage. The lies were breathtaking in their audacity. Marcus had always asked Diana about her day, always supported her business launch, always celebrated her victories. When she'd wanted to quit her marketing job at a corporate firm to start the agency with Rachel, he'd said yes without hesitation, even though it meant tighter finances for 18 months while they built the client base. He'd designed their website for free, 40 hours of work. He'd filmed all their promotional content, 20 hours behind the camera. He'd attended every networking event she'd asked him to, made conversation with her clients, played the supportive husband role perfectly. And she'd taken all of it, every ounce of his support, every sacrifice, every encouraging word, and twisted it into evidence of neglect. You've really thought this through, Rachel said softly. There was something in her voice now that Marcus couldn't quite identify. Admiration? Concern? Complicity? I've had a year to think about it, Diana said. And honestly, I'm excited, Rachel. Blake is already talking about trips we'll take once this is over. Italy in the spring. Real Italy, not backpacking through hostels like Marcus and I did on our honeymoon. 5-star hotels in Tuscany. Private wine tours through Chianti. Cooking classes with actual Italian chefs. The kind of trip people actually want to take, not some budget adventure where you're staying in hostels and eating at markets. Marcus remembered their honeymoon. 3 weeks traveling by train through Europe, Paris, Amsterdam, Prague, Vienna, Budapest, Rome. They'd stayed in tiny family-run pensions, eaten at local markets, explored hidden neighborhoods that tourists never found. Diana had cried at the Trevi fountain and made him promise they'd come back for their 10th anniversary. She'd said it was the most romantic trip of her life. Another lie. Another performance in a marriage built on performances. There was rustling, the sound of Diana gathering her things. A chair scraping across the floor. I need to get to the office, Diana said. We have that client call at 11 with the brewery guys. Are you going to be ready with the presentation? Yeah, I finished it last night, Rachel said. Diana, wait, if Marcus ever found out about this conversation. He won't, Diana cut her off, confident and dismissive. Marcus barely knows how to work his own phone, let alone mine. And even if he did somehow hear this, what's he going to do? Make a documentary about it? They both laughed. The sound cut through Marcus like glass, sharp and cold and merciless. More rustling, footsteps, the background noise of the coffee shop getting louder as Diana presumably stood and walked toward the exit. Then her voice, very close to her phone now, oh shit. Rachel, is my phone? Wait, is this? The screen went black, call ended, .. For exactly 30 seconds, Marcus sat in complete silence. His studio looked exactly the same as it had 25 minutes ago. Same editing monitors glowing softly in the morning light. Same keyboard and mouse. Same cold coffee in his Portland Timbers mug. Same framed photo of him and Diana on the shelf above his desk, taken at Cannon Beach last summer, both of them laughing as waves crashed behind them, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. But nothing would ever be the same again. His phone buzzed. Diana calling. Marcus stared at her name on the screen. Let it ring. Watched it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Decline. A text appeared. Marcus, call me back right now. Then another. If you heard anything just now, you need to understand, it's not what you think. Then another. Rachel and I were just venting. You know how we get when we're together. We say stupid things. Marcus watched the texts roll in, one after another, seeing the pattern unfold in real time. First panic, then deflection, Then gaslighting. Another text. You're being ridiculous. Call me right now so we can talk about this like adults. Like adults. As if he was the one being childish. As if he was having some kind of tantrum instead of responding to the fact that his wife had been cheating on him for a year and planning to destroy him financially. The shift from panic to anger took less than 90 seconds. Marcus watched it happen through the text messages, seeing Diana's manipulation tactics laid bare. No more pretending. No more performances. Another text. Fine. Be childish. I'm coming home and we're discussing this face to face. Be there in 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Marcus looked at his laptop, still open to the editing software. His documentary was due in 6 weeks. He had 40 hours of footage left to cut, color correction to finish, sound mixing to complete, title sequences to design. But none of that mattered now. His hands were shaking. He set his phone down carefully on his desk and stared at it, watching as more texts came through. Each one a different manipulation tactic. Guilt, anger, bargaining. Diana was running through every trick in the book. But Marcus wasn't thinking about the texts anymore. He was thinking about what Diana didn't know. What nobody except Marcus's accountant and his late mother's estate attorney knew. When his mother passed away 4 years ago, breast cancer, stage 4, gone in 6 months from diagnosis to funeral, she'd left him a life insurance payout and an investment portfolio. Not an insane amount, not millions, but enough to change everything. $1.8 million. His mother had been careful, practical, smart with money in a way that Marcus had inherited. She'd worked as a nurse for 35 years, lived modestly, invested consistently. And she'd left everything to Marcus, her only child, with a single handwritten note attached to the will. Build something that matters. Don't let money change who you are. Marcus had made a choice. He'd wanted to build his career on his own merit. Wanted to prove to himself, and to anyone he might marry, that he could create something meaningful without relying on inherited wealth. Wanted to know that whoever loved him, not his potential, not his resources, not what he could provide. So he'd invested the money conservatively and lived entirely on his salary. Put it in index funds and municipal bonds and let it grow untouched. Never took distributions, never used it for anything. Just let it sit there, accumulating, waiting. Diana had no idea those funds existed. When they'd gotten married 7 years ago, Marcus had signed simple estate documents confirming the inheritance for legal purposes. But he'd downplayed it, called it, some savings from my mom's estate, that was tied up in long-term investments. Diana had barely glanced at the paperwork, uninterested in anything that wasn't immediately accessible. She'd never asked about it again. And Marcus had never volunteered more information. He'd planned to tell her everything after Sundance. After his documentary premiered, after he'd proven he could make it as a filmmaker without taking shortcuts or compromising his vision. He'd imagined the conversation, surprising her with the security and freedom that money would provide. Maybe finally starting the family they'd talked about but kept postponing because she said they weren't financially stable enough yet. What a complete, absolute fool he'd been. Marcus opened his laptop browser and searched. Divorce attorney, Portland, Oregon, high net worth. 50 results appeared. He started reading reviews, cross-referencing specializations, looking for patterns. He needed someone who understood complex assets. Someone who could move quickly and quietly. Someone who specialized in protecting clients from financial manipulation. One name kept appearing in the top-tier results, Catherine Liu. Marcus clicked through to her website. 17 years of experience, specialization in high-acid divorces. Multiple testimonials from clients praising her strategic thinking and aggressive protection of their interests. A quote on her homepage: "Justice in divorce isn't about revenge. It's about ensuring both parties leave with what they're legally entitled to, nothing more, nothing less." Perfect. Marcus found her contact form and started typing. Ms. Liu, asterisk. My name is Marcus Chen. I need to schedule an emergency consultation regarding an impending divorce. I have significant separate property assets my spouse is unaware of, and I have documentation of her planning to manipulate me through the divorce process. Can you see me today? He hit send before he could second-guess himself. Then he did something that surprised him. He called his brother David. David was 2 years younger, lived in Eugene with his wife Emma and their 2 kids, a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. He worked as a civil engineer for the city. They talked every few weeks, saw each other at family gatherings, maintained the easy relationship of brothers who genuinely liked each other. They hadn't spoken in 3 weeks. David answered on the first ring. Marcus, I was just thinking about you. How's the Sundance prep going? Emma keeps asking when we can see a rough cut. David, Marcus's voice came out rougher than he intended. I need you to listen carefully. I'm about to tell you something, and I need you not to interrupt until I'm done. There was a pause. The background noise on David's end, what sounded like a construction site, heavy machinery, suddenly seemed very far away. Okay, David said slowly. You're scaring me a little, but okay. I'm listening. Marcus told him everything. The accidental FaceTime call, the conversation he'd overheard, the year-long affair with Blake, the planned divorce filing in January, timed to catch him vulnerable after Sundance. Diana's strategy to paint herself as the neglected wife. Rachel's involvement, the calculated discussion of how to maximize the settlement, the cruel laughter about his poverty and principles, and his artistic integrity. He told David about Blake, the restaurant owner with 3 locations in the Pearl District, the Tesla, the penthouse condo, the promised $200,000 investment in Diana's agency. He told him about Napa Valley and the French Laundry and the villa rental that happened while Diana claimed to be in San Francisco for work. He told him everything in clear, precise detail, his voice steady even though his hands were still shaking. When he finished, there was a long, heavy silence. Jesus fucking Christ, David finally said, his voice tight with fury. Marcus, I'm so sorry. That's unforgivable. What are you going to do? I'm going to protect myself, Marcus said simply. I'm going to document everything, hire the best lawyer I can find, and make sure she doesn't get a single penny she's not legally entitled to. Good, do it, burn it all down. David's voice was hard now, protective in the way only siblings could be. Do you need me to come up there? I can leave work right now. Be there in 2 hours. Not yet, but I might need you to testify if this goes to court. You're credible, you're my brother, you've known Diana since we started dating. You can confirm I was never neglectful, never controlling, never the person she's going to try to make me look like. Absolutely, whatever you need, whenever you need it. David paused. And Marcus? She doesn't know about Mom's money, does she? No. Another pause, then David let out a low whistle. So she has absolutely no idea she's about to go to war with someone who has actual resources. She thinks you're some broke filmmaker she can steamroll. Exactly. Oh, Marcus. David's voice was almost gleeful now. She's going to lose her mind when she finds out. I'm sorry for what you're going through, but holy shit, the look on her face when she realizes. I know, Marcus said. And despite everything, despite the pain and the betrayal and the crushing weight of 9 years revealed to be a lie, he almost smiled. They talked for another 15 minutes. David offered increasingly creative suggestions for revenge that ranged from practical to illegal to absolutely insane. Marcus found himself listening, feeling the first stirrings of something other than devastation. Having someone in his corner, someone who was genuinely outraged on his behalf, made the crushing loneliness feel slightly more bearable. I'll fly up this weekend if you need me, David said before they hung up. Just say the word and I'm there. Emma will understand. And Marcus? Mom would be proud of how you're handling this. You know that, right? Marcus's throat tightened. Thanks, Dave. When they hung up, Marcus looked around his studio one more time. This house, he'd found it when it was a foreclosure, saw potential where everyone else saw problems. Spent 6 months renovating it himself. Learned carpentry and plumbing and electrical work. Turned it into something beautiful. Diana had complained about every step of the process. Too much work, too much mess, too much time, but Marcus had done it anyway, believing he was building their future. Now she wanted half of it. Wanted to walk away like their marriage had been nothing more than a bad investment that needed to be liquidated. Marcus heard a car door slam outside. His pulse quickened. Diana was home. Time to see what kind of performance she'd prepared. Like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new stories here every day. And if Diana's betrayal already has you heated, drop a comment. Let me see how many of us are feeling the same way. Marcus minimized his browser windows, closed his email, and stood up from his desk. His legs felt unsteady, but he forced himself to walk calmly toward the stairs. He could hear Diana's key in the front door lock, the sound of it turning, the door opening with that familiar creak he kept meaning to fix. Her footsteps crossed the hardwood floor in the entryway. Quick, urgent, anxious. Marcus. Her voice was breathless, frightened. Marcus, where are you? He walked down the stairs slowly, deliberately. Took each step with measured care. He wasn't going to rush. Wasn't going to let her set the pace or control the tone of this conversation. When he reached the bottom of the stairs and turned into the living room, Diana was standing in the middle of the space, her purse dropped carelessly at her feet. Her face was flushed, her eyes wide with panic and calculation. She looked beautiful, she always did, that was part of what had made this so easy for her. Marcus had never suspected someone who looked at him the way she did. With those warm brown eyes, that genuine seeming smile, that tender expression she wore when they were alone, could be lying so completely. "How much did you hear?" she asked. Her voice was small, careful, testing. Marcus just looked at her. Said nothing. He'd learned a long time ago, back in his documentary work, that silence could be more powerful than any question. People filled silence. They revealed themselves in it. Diana took a step toward him, hands outstretched, reaching. "Marcus, please, whatever you think you heard, it's not what you think. Rachel and I, we were just talking. We say crazy things when we're together, you know that. We get worked up, we exaggerate, we." "A year," Marcus said quietly. "You've been sleeping with Blake Donovan for a year. Since last October. You met him at that networking event at the Jupiter Hotel. The one where you came home at 11 saying you'd made all these great connections." Diana's face went white. "You have a lawyer," Marcus continued, his voice still quiet, still calm. "You're planning to file for divorce in January, right after I get back from Sundance, when I'm riding high from the premiere and will be too emotional to think clearly. Too vulnerable to protect myself." "Marcus, you think I'm pathetically naive," he said, and now there was an edge to his voice. "You think I'm too trusting, too focused on my poverty and principles to notice that you've been building an entirely separate life. You were going to paint yourself as the neglected wife. Document all the times I stayed up late editing or worked weekends on my film. Make me look like the one who abandoned our marriage." Diana's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. For the first time since Marcus had known her, she seemed genuinely at a loss for words. "I heard everything, Diana. Everything. From the moment you told Rachel you couldn't do this much longer to the part where you both laughed about me making a documentary about our divorce. Every single word, every cruel detail about how I'm struggling and choosing poverty over success. Every calculation about the settlement. Every strategy discussion with your lawyer." Marcus took his phone out of his pocket and held it up. "And I have it all recorded. Every word, time-stamped, documented, ready to present to a judge if necessary." Tears started streaming down Diana's face. Real tears, or maybe fake ones, Marcus couldn't tell anymore. Maybe she couldn't tell either. Maybe she'd been performing for so long that she didn't know the difference between genuine emotion and strategic manipulation. "I didn't mean any of it," she sobbed. "I was just, Rachel gets me worked up. We say things, stupid things we don't mean. Blake doesn't mean anything. It was a mistake, a stupid mistake. Please, Marcus, you have to believe me. I love you. I've always loved you." "Stop," Marcus said quietly. Diana's sobs caught in her throat. "Just stop," Marcus repeated. "I know what you're doing. I saw your text messages rolling in. Panic, deflection, gaslighting, anger, bargaining. You're working through your manipulation playbook. And now we're at tears and declarations of love." He met her eyes directly. "But I heard you, Diana. I heard your real voice, when you didn't know I was listening. I heard you laugh about the poem I wrote you. I heard you call my work little projects and my principles bullshit. I heard you discuss strategy for maximizing your settlement and catching me when I'm vulnerable. That wasn't venting. That wasn't Rachel getting you worked up. That was you. The real you." Diana was shaking now, her tears still flowing, but something hard was creeping into her expression. Something calculating. "Get out," Marcus said. "What? Pack a bag, take whatever you need for a few days. And leave." "Marcus, no, please, you can't just." "Diana." His voice was still quiet, still calm, but something in it made her stop mid-sentence. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to spend a year planning my destruction, mocking everything I value, sleeping with someone else, and then cry your way out of it because you got caught. You want out of this marriage? Fine, you're out, but you don't get to control how it happens anymore. This is my home too," she said, and just like that, the tears shut off like a faucet. Her voice went cold, hard, there was that calculating look again, sharper now. "You can't just throw me out. I have rights." "You're absolutely right," Marcus said. "This is your home too, legally. Which is why I'm asking you to leave voluntarily for a few days while we both figure out next steps. Give us both some space to think clearly." He pulled his phone out again, held it up so she could see the recording app still open. "Unless you'd prefer I start playing this conversation for everyone we know." Your clients, your family, Rachel's husband. Does Tom know his wife has been helping you plan all this? Blake's ex-wife. I'm sure she'd be very interested to hear about your relationship. Your choice, Diana. The look she gave him was pure venom. There she was, the real Diana, the one who'd been hidden under loving smiles and supportive words and tender moments. The one who'd called him pathetically naive. The one who'd called his life's work poverty and principles. You're going to regret this, she said coldly. I already regret it, Marcus replied. I regret the last 9 years. I regret ever believing you loved me. I regret renovating this house for you and supporting your business and writing you poetry and thinking any of it mattered. He walked to the door and opened it. But I'll tell you what I don't regret. Finding out who you really are before I wasted any more of my life. Diana grabbed her purse with shaking hands, turned on her heel, and stormed toward their bedroom. Marcus heard drawers slamming, hangers clattering against the closet rod, her angry footsteps pacing back and forth. 15 minutes later, she emerged with a rolling suitcase and her laptop bag. She stopped at the door, turned back to look at him. For just a second, one brief, flickering moment, her mask slipped and Marcus saw something like genuine regret cross her face. But then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. You'll hear from my lawyer, she said. I'm counting on it, Marcus replied. The door slammed behind her hard enough to rattle the windows. The sound echoed through the suddenly too quiet house, bouncing off walls and fading into silence. Marcus stood in the living room for a long moment, listening to the emptiness. Then his legs finally gave out and he sank onto the couch, his hands covering his face. He didn't cry, not yet. The tears wouldn't come. Instead, he felt hollowed out, scraped clean, like everything inside him had been removed and nothing remained but a vast, echoing space. His phone buzzed, an email notification. Marcus pulled his hands away from his face and looked at the screen. Catherine Liu, attorney at law. Subject: emergency consultation request. Mr. Chen, I've reviewed your email. I can see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Please bring any documentation you have, recordings, financial records, timelines, communication logs. Everything. This is clearly time sensitive. We need to move quickly. Catherine Liu. Marcus typed a reply with steady fingers. I'll be there. Thank you. He set his phone down and looked around his living room. The photos on the mantle. Their wedding at Cannon Beach, that trip to Vancouver Island, last Christmas at his father's house in Sacramento. Diana smiling in every one. Marcus with his arm around her, both of them looking happy. Looking like a couple in love. How much of it had been real? Any of it? Or had she been calculating from the beginning, measuring him against some internal checklist of usefulness? Marcus stood and walked to the mantel, picked up their wedding photo, both of them laughing on the beach, ocean wind whipping Diana's hair, Marcus's hand on her waist, her hand on his chest. He couldn't throw it away yet. That felt too violent, too final, too much like admitting that every good moment had been a lie. But he didn't need to look at it anymore either. Marcus turned the frame face down and set it back on the mantel. Then he went back upstairs to his studio and opened a new document. Started typing everything he could remember from the phone call while it was still fresh. Every word, every laugh, every cruel comment about his work and his character and his supposed weaknesses. Documentation. That's what Catherine had said. Everything needed to be documented. His phone buzzed constantly over the next hour. More texts from Diana, first apologetic. Please, can we just talk? I'll explain everything. I'll tell you the truth. Then angry. You're being completely unreasonable. I made one mistake and you're destroying our marriage over it. Then threatening. My lawyer is going to eat you alive. You have no idea what you've just started. Then bargaining. What if we went to counseling? We could work through this. I know we could. And finally, coldly calculated, fine. If this is how you want to play it. But remember, I know things about you too. Your obsession with work, the times you ignored me, the vacations we never took because of your schedule. A judge will hear all of it. Marcus read each text without responding. Watched the manipulation tactics unfold in real time. Panic, denial, gaslighting, anger, bargaining, threats. She was running through every trick she knew, trying to find something that would work. But Marcus wasn't responding. He was documenting. He took screenshots of every text, organized them chronologically, added them to his timeline document with timestamps and context notes. By the time he finished, it was after 7 in the evening. His phone rang. Not Diana this time. His father. Marcus hesitated, then answered. Marcus. His father's voice was warm, concerned. How's everything? We haven't talked in a couple weeks. Your stepmother keeps asking about Sundance. She wants to know if we can come to the premiere. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Dad, he said, is Anne there? I need to talk to both of you about something. The shift in his father's tone was immediate. What's wrong? Are you okay? I'm okay, but I need to tell you about Diana. 5 minutes later, both his father and Anne were on the line. Marcus told them everything, just as he'd told David. The phone call, the affair, the planned divorce, the manipulation strategy. His voice stayed steady throughout, almost clinical, like he was describing something that had happened to someone else. When he finished, there was a long, heavy silence. Marcus, his father finally said, his voice thick with emotion. Son, I don't even know what to say. I'm so sorry. We never saw any signs. She always seemed so devoted to you. That was the point, Dad, Marcus said quietly. She was performing. For all of us. What do you need from us? Anne asked, ever practical. Do you need us to come up there? Do you need help with anything? Not right now, but I'm filing for divorce. Probably tomorrow. When Diana gets served, she might call you. She might try to spin this, make me look like the bad guy. I need you to know the truth before she gets to you with her version. We're on your side, his father said firmly. Whatever you need, whenever you need it. That girl, he stopped, his voice breaking. We loved her. We thought she loved you. So did I, Marcus said. They talked for another 20 minutes, his father alternating between fury at Diana and concern for Marcus. Before they hung up, Anne said something that struck Marcus deeply. You know, your mother used to say that the measure of a person isn't what they do when things are easy. It's what they do when things are hard. You're handling this with more grace and intelligence than most people could manage. She'd be proud of you. After the call, Marcus sat in his studio as evening light faded to darkness outside his window. He didn't turn on any lights. Just sat there in the growing shadows, watching the city lights come on across the Willamette, listening to the quiet sounds of the house settling around him. His phone buzzed one more time. A text from Diana. I'm staying at Rachel's. Don't try to contact me. My lawyer will be in touch. Marcus read it once, then set his phone face down on his desk. Good, let her stay at Rachel's. Let them plot together, plan their strategy, convince themselves that Marcus was the villain in this story. Tomorrow, he would start building his defense. Tomorrow, he would meet with Catherine Liu and begin the process of protecting everything he'd worked for. Tonight, he would grieve, mourn the death of his marriage and the loss of the woman he'd thought he knew. But underneath the grief, something else was forming. Something hard and clear and absolutely focused. Diana had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated him completely. She thought he was naive, pathetically trusting, easy to manipulate. She thought he was some broke filmmaker who would just accept whatever she proposed because he'd be too devastated to fight back. She had no idea about the $1.8 million. No idea he had resources. No idea he could hire the best attorney in Portland and fight her on equal ground. And she definitely had no idea that Marcus had spent 3 years making a documentary about survival, resilience, and fighting against impossible odds. He'd learned a lot from those immigrant families. About strategy, about patience, about waiting for the right moment to act. Diana was about to learn exactly how much. The next morning, Marcus woke at 5:30. He'd barely slept, his mind running through scenarios and possibilities, but he felt oddly clear-headed. Focused. He showered, dressed in his one good suit, navy blue, tailored, bought for film festival premieres and grant presentations. Made coffee and actually drank it this time. Ate toast even though he wasn't hungry. His body needed fuel for what was coming. At 7:45, he stood outside Catherine Liu's office building in downtown Portland. Glass and steel and understated wealth. The kind of place that radiated competence and serious business. He was 15 minutes early. Good, he wanted time to prepare himself. The lobby was tastefully appointed, modern furniture, abstract art on the walls, a reception desk staffed by a professional-looking woman in her 30s. Marcus Chen for Catherine Liu, he told her when she looked up. She's expecting you. Top floor, suite 1200. Elevators are to your right. Marcus rode the elevator up, watching the city fall away through the glass walls. Portland spread out below him, the Willamette River cutting through downtown, the bridges crossing it like veins, the West Hills rising green and residential beyond. Somewhere down there, Diana was waking up at Rachel's apartment, probably still texting her lawyer, still planning her strategy, still convinced she had the upper hand. The elevator doors opened. Catherine Liu's waiting room was impressive but not ostentatious. Comfortable chairs, recent magazines, windows overlooking the river. A paralegal, young, efficient-looking, sat at a desk near the inner office door. Mr. Chen? She stood. Ms. Liu is ready for you. Go right in. Marcus pushed open the door. Catherine Liu's office was exactly what he'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined with legal volumes. A massive desk that looked like it cost more than most cars. Windows overlooking Elliott Bay with a view that probably added $50,000 to the annual office rent. Catherine herself was in her early 40s, sharp suit, intelligent eyes, the air of someone who'd seen every trick in the book and wasn't impressed by any of them. She stood when Marcus entered, extending her hand. Mr. Chen, Catherine Liu, please, sit. Marcus shook her hand and sat in one of the leather chairs across from her desk. Catherine sat as well, pulling an iPad toward her. Your email was intriguing. Before we begin, I need to confirm you understand attorney-client privilege and confidentiality. I understand. Good. She tapped her iPad screen. Walk me through everything from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. Marcus did. He told her about the accidental FaceTime call. Played her the recording he'd saved, all 23 minutes of Diana and Rachel's conversation. Showed her the timeline he'd created of suspicious behavior over the past year. The phone logs showing hundreds of calls and texts to Blake's number. The joint account records showing Diana had full access to everything. He explained about his mother's inheritance, the amount, how it was invested, why he'd kept it separate. He told her about Diana's lawyer, about the planned January filing, about the strategy to catch him vulnerable after Sundance. Catherine listened without interrupting, taking notes with quick, precise swipes on her iPad. When Marcus finished, she set the device down and looked at him with something that might have been respect. Mr. Chen, in 17 years of practicing family law, I've rarely seen someone come to me this prepared. You did everything right, the recording, the documentation, the financial separation. Your wife essentially handed you her entire strategy on a silver platter. So what happens now? Marcus asked. Now we go on offense. Catherine pulled up files on her computer. Oregon is a no-fault divorce state, which means the affair itself doesn't typically affect asset division. However, what does matter is that you have significant assets she doesn't know about, and you were smart enough not to commingle them with marital assets. She turned her screen so Marcus could see. Your mother's life insurance payout and investments are classified as separate property because they were inherited by you individually after your marriage began. You never deposited them in joint accounts, never used them for marital expenses, never told your wife the full extent of the inheritance. That means they're almost entirely protected. Marcus felt something unclench in his chest. So she can't touch it? Not the inheritance itself. The house is different. That's marital property purchased during the marriage with marital funds, even though you did most of the renovation work yourself. She's entitled to half the equity, which you mentioned is around $300,000. Catherine leaned forward, but here's where this gets interesting. You renovated that house almost entirely yourself, correct? Spent 6 months doing carpentry, plumbing, electrical work? Every weekend, I taught myself everything from YouTube videos and library books. Do you have documentation? Receipts for materials? Photos of the work in progress? Video footage? Marcus almost smiled. Hours of footage. I was documenting the whole process for a potential short film about DIY home renovation. Before and after photos. Time-lapse videos of major projects. Receipts for every board and wire and pipe. Catherine's expression sharpened with satisfaction. Perfect. We can argue that your personal labor significantly increased the property value, and that sweat equity should be calculated differently than simple financial investment. We can also argue for reimbursement of your labor at market rates. What would it have cost to hire contractors to do that work? Probably $60,000, Marcus said. Maybe more, even better. But here's what I really want to do, Mr. Chen. Catherine pulled up a calendar. I want to file first. Marcus blinked. I thought she was planning to file in January. She is. Which means we need to beat her to it. If we file first, we control the narrative. We set the terms of the initial pleadings. And most importantly, we catch her off guard, exactly like she caught you off guard with that phone call. Catherine pointed to the calendar. The timing is perfect. It's early October. By the time we get through initial hearings and discovery, it'll be November and December. The holidays. Judges tend to look more carefully at cases during that time period. They're more sympathetic to claims of manipulation and deception when families are supposed to be together. She looked directly at Marcus. Your wife will be scrambling to adjust her strategy while trying to maintain appearances at Thanksgiving and Christmas. And you'll be preparing for Sundance, showing that you have your own successful career trajectory. The optics are excellent. Marcus thought about Diana's text from last night. My lawyer will be in touch. The arrogance of it, the certainty that she had all the information she needed, that Marcus would just roll over and accept whatever she demanded. Do it, he said. File today. Catherine nodded, her expression satisfied. Good, now let's talk strategy. Your wife has made several crucial mistakes. First, she underestimated you completely. Second, she documented her plans in a recording you can prove is authentic and unedited. Third, she doesn't know about your inheritance. These are significant advantages. What about Blake? Marcus asked. The man she's been having the affair with. Is there any way to, I don't know, make his life difficult too? Is Blake married? Divorced 2 years ago, according to Diana. She mentioned he went through his own divorce and that's why he knows the game so well. Catherine made a note. We'll want to find out more about his divorce. If there were infidelity clauses or morality issues in his settlement, that information might be useful. She looked at Marcus directly. You mentioned he owns 3 restaurants in the Pearl District. That's a public-facing business. They tend to be very sensitive to reputation issues. Marcus felt a spark of satisfaction. You're saying we could impact his business? I'm saying that information has a way of traveling, Mr. Chen. Especially well-documented information about affairs with married women. Catherine paused. Many commercial landlords and investors have ethics clauses in their agreements. Many restaurant critics and food writers care about the character of restaurant owners. Many customers prefer to support businesses run by people with integrity. She leaned back in her chair. But we need to be strategic. We can't go after him directly. That looks vindictive and could hurt your case. However, if information about his relationship with your wife happens to become public through other channels. She left the sentence unfinished. How far are you willing to go with this? Catherine asked. Marcus thought about Diana's voice on that recording. Marcus barely knows how to work his own phone. Even if he did, what's he going to do? Make a documentary about it? Both of them laughing at him. Mocking his work, his choices, his character. As far as it takes, Marcus said quietly. I want her to understand there are consequences for treating people like this. I want her to know that kindness isn't weakness and underestimating someone is a mistake. Catherine smiled, sharp and pleased. Then let's build an airtight case. By the time we're done, she'll be lucky to walk away with what she's legally entitled to and nothing more. No manipulation, no generous settlement, no playing on your sympathy. Just cold, hard facts and the consequences of her choices. They spent the next 90 minutes going through details. Marcus signed a retainer agreement, $20,000 up front, which he paid from his personal checking account without hesitation. The money barely made a dent in his available funds, but Catherine didn't need to know that yet. He signed authorization forms for financial records, phone records, social media archives. Catherine had him write a detailed statement about his marriage, how they met, how their relationship developed, Diana's decision to start her business, his support of that decision, the renovation of their house, their life together. He wrote about the Sundance acceptance, his first feature documentary, 3 years of work, the most important professional achievement of his career. How Diana had seemed happy for him when he got the acceptance email, but now he understood she'd been calculating. Timing, planning. At 11 o'clock, Catherine's paralegal brought in the first draft of the divorce petition. Marcus read through it carefully. It was clinical, precise, devastating. The petition requested immediate separation of assets, division of marital property according to Oregon law, limited spousal support based on Diana's business income and cohabitation with a romantic partner, preservation of all financial records and communications, reimbursement for uncompensated labor increasing marital property value. Attached as exhibits were the recording of Diana's phone conversation, transcript included Marcus's timeline of suspicious behavior, phone records showing contact with Blake, documentation of the house renovation, receipts, photos, time logs, financial records showing Diana had full access to all accounts. We're also requesting a temporary restraining order preventing either party from disposing of marital assets or taking on significant debt, Catherine explained. This prevents her from running up credit cards or selling property before the divorce is final. It also prevents her from accessing any joint accounts beyond normal living expenses. Marcus signed the documents with steady hands. How long will this take? He asked. Oregon requires a 90-day waiting period from filing to finalization. That's state law, can't be waived. But the real timeline depends on how much she wants to fight. If she accepts our terms, we could be done in 3 months. If she contests everything, it could take a year or more. Catherine pulled up her calendar. I'm filing these electronically with Multnomah County Circuit Court this afternoon. Your wife will be served tomorrow morning wherever she's currently residing. The process server will deliver the papers in person and file proof of service with the court. She's staying at her business partner's apartment, Marcus said. Rachel Park. I can give you the address. Perfect. Catherine made a note. What happens next is that she'll have 30 days to respond. Her lawyer will probably try to schedule an emergency hearing to dispute the temporary orders or request interim spousal support. That's support during the divorce proceedings. We'll oppose based on her business income and her relationship with Blake. She looked at Marcus seriously. Meanwhile, we'll use discovery to gather more information. About Blake, about any financial accounts she might have that you don't know about her business finances, about everything. Discovery is where we build the complete picture. Catherine walked him to the door. Mr. Chen, I want you to prepare yourself for something. When your wife realizes you're not the easy target she thought you were, when she understands that you have resources and documentation she didn't know about, this is going to get ugly. She might make accusations. She might try to turn your friends and family against you. She might claim you were controlling or abusive. You need to be ready for all of that. I will be, Marcus said. Good. Catherine paused. And Mr. Chen, what you're doing, protecting yourself from someone who was actively planning to exploit you, that's not weakness. That's wisdom. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for defending yourself. Marcus left the office feeling something he hadn't felt since that devastating phone call yesterday morning. Powerful, in control, like he was finally playing offense instead of defense. He grabbed lunch at a food cart near Waterfront Park, sitting on a bench and watching boats drift along the Willamette. The October sun was warm on his face. Leaves were starting to turn yellow and red on the trees lining the waterfront. His phone buzzed constantly. More texts from Diana, more manipulation attempts, but Marcus ignored them all. Instead, he called his father back. It's done, Marcus told him. I met with the attorney. We're filing for divorce today. Diana will be served tomorrow morning. His father was quiet for a moment. How are you holding up? Better than I expected, Marcus said honestly. I think knowing the truth is better than being lied to, even if the truth is awful. Your mother used to say something similar, his father said softly. She'd say that clarity is a gift, even when it's painful. That knowing where you stand is better than living in confusion. They talked for another 10 minutes. His father told him about a project at work, about Anne's book club drama, about normal things that made Marcus remember there was a world beyond his imploding marriage. Before they hung up, his father said, Marcus, I'm proud of you, for how you're handling this, for protecting yourself, for not letting her destroy you. Thanks, Dad. Marcus sat on that bench for another hour, watching the city move around him. People walked by with coffee cups and shopping bags and dogs on leashes. Joggers passed along the waterfront trail. A street musician played guitar near the Salmon Street Springs fountain. Normal life continued, the world kept turning, and Marcus realized something important. His life would continue too. This betrayal didn't have to define him. This pain didn't have to destroy him. Diana had tried to reduce him to nothing more than a pathetic, oblivious fool. But he was so much more than that. He was a documentary filmmaker whose work would premiere at Sundance in 4 months. He was a teacher whose students consistently praised his mentorship. He was a son and brother and friend. He was someone who'd built something beautiful with his own hands. Someone who'd helped immigrant families tell their stories. Someone who believed in art and integrity and doing work that mattered. Diana's cruelty didn't change any of that. At 3 o'clock, his phone buzzed with an email from Catherine. Petition filed with Multnomah County Circuit Court at 2:47 p.m. Process server scheduled for 7 a.m. tomorrow at Rachel Park's residence. I'll call you after service is confirmed. Marcus read the email twice, then put his phone away and walked back to his car. Tomorrow morning, Diana would wake up at Rachel's apartment and get served with divorce papers. Tomorrow, she would realize that Marcus wasn't the pathetic, easy Mark she'd thought she married. Tomorrow, the war would truly begin. But tonight, Marcus was going home. He was going to work on his documentary. He was going to focus on the stories that mattered. He was going to remind himself why he did this work in the first place. Because even when your personal life fell apart, even when the person you loved most betrayed you completely, the work still mattered. The stories still mattered, and Marcus Chen still mattered. The next morning, Marcus woke to his alarm at 6:30. He'd actually slept 5 solid hours, which was more than he'd managed the night before. His body was starting to adjust to the new reality, finding equilibrium in the chaos. He made coffee, checked his email. Nothing from Catherine yet. The process server wouldn't reach Rachel's apartment for another 30 minutes. Marcus tried to imagine Diana's face when she opened the door and got handed divorce papers. Would she be shocked? Furious? Would she immediately call her lawyer, or would she call Marcus first, begging him to reconsider? It didn't matter. Whatever she did, he was prepared. At 7:45, his phone rang. Catherine Liu. Good morning, Mr. Chen. Just confirming that your wife was served at 7:05 this morning at Rachel Park's residence. According to the process server, she became quite agitated upon reading the documents. She attempted to refuse service, but he was able to deliver them properly and file proof of service with the court. I noticed, Marcus said dryly, glancing at the 43 text messages that had flooded his phone in the last 40 minutes. I expect we'll hear from her attorney within 24 hours. Until then, do not respond to her messages. Do not engage in any way. Any communication should come through me. If she shows up at your home or workplace, document it but don't interact beyond asking her to leave. Understood? Understood. One more thing. Catherine's voice took on an interested tone. I had my investigator do some preliminary research on Blake Donovan. Interesting findings. Marcus sat up straighter. What did you find? His divorce wasn't quite as amicable as he's been claiming to your wife. His ex-wife, Amanda Donovan, filed on grounds of adultery. According to the court records, Blake was having an affair with a married woman whose husband was one of his restaurant investors. The divorce got very messy, disputes over business assets, partnership agreements, allegations of financial impropriety. Catherine paused. The divorce was finalized 18 months ago, not 2 years. And it's still not completely settled. There are ongoing disputes about profit sharing from the restaurants. Amanda is claiming she's entitled to a percentage of future earnings because she invested her own money in the initial restaurant launch. Marcus felt cold satisfaction settle in his chest. So he's a serial home wrecker. It appears so, which means 2 things. 1, your wife has chosen a partner with a proven pattern of dishonesty and infidelity. 2, Blake's business partners and investors are almost certainly monitoring his personal life very closely after the last disaster. Another affair with a married woman could create serious problems for him. Can we use that? We can certainly make sure the right people know about it. My investigator is also looking into whether your wife had any professional connection to Blake's restaurants before the affair started. If her marketing agency did any work for him, it could complicate things ethically, both for her business reputation and his. After the call ended, Marcus sat with his coffee and finally looked at Diana's texts. The first few were panicked. Asterisk. What did you do? You filed for divorce without even talking to me? Asterisk. Asterisk. Marcus, this is insane. We can work this out. Please call me. Asterisk. Asterisk. You can't just do this. We need to talk face to face. Asterisk. Then angry. Asterisk. You are such a coward. You can't even face me. You have to do this through lawyers. Asterisk. Asterisk. This is exactly the kind of controlling behavior I was talking about. My lawyer is going to hear about this. Asterisk. Asterisk. You're going to regret this. You have no idea what you've just started. Asterisk. Then bargaining. Asterisk. Marcus, please. Can we just talk? 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Asterisk. Asterisk. I'll tell you everything. The truth. No more lies. Please just call off the lawyers. Asterisk. Asterisk. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. Don't throw away 9 years without even trying. Asterisk. And finally, coldly calculated. Asterisk. Fine, if this is how you want to play it. But remember, I know things about you too. Things that won't look good in court. Your obsession with work. The times you ignored me for your precious projects. A judge will hear all of it. Asterisk. Marcus screenshot each one, saved them to a folder labeled Diana, post-filing communications, and filed them away. More documentation, more evidence of her manipulation tactics. He didn't respond to a single message. Instead, he went to his studio and worked on his documentary. He had a rough cut due to his Sundance liaison in 3 weeks. The film was nearly there. He just needed to tighten some transitions, polish the color grading, finalize the sound mix. The work was meditative, focusing on story structure and emotional beats and visual rhythm helped quiet the chaos in his mind. This was what he was good at. This was what mattered. Around 10:30, his phone rang again. Unknown number. Marcus almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Is this Marcus Chen? A woman's voice. Uncertain. Strained. Yes. Who is this? My name is Amanda Donovan. I'm Blake's ex-wife. She paused. Your wife called me 2 hours ago. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. What did she say? She told me I needed to stop causing problems. That my divorce was affecting her relationship with Blake and I should just accept the settlement his lawyers are offering and move on. Amanda's voice cracked. She called me bitter and pathetic. She said Blake was happier with her than he ever was with me and that I needed to let go. Marcus closed his eyes. Of course Diana had called. Of course she'd gone on the offensive, trying to eliminate any threats to her relationship with Blake. I'm sorry she did that, Marcus said quietly. That was cruel and inappropriate. Is it true you recorded her talking about the affair? Marcus hesitated. How do you know about that? Blake told me. He's been calling me for the past 2 days, trying to pressure me into an expedited divorce settlement. Apparently your wife wants to move in with him sooner than originally planned, and my ongoing legal claims are making that complicated. Amanda laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. He mentioned that you're causing problems, that you have some kind of recording that's making everything difficult for them. I do have a recording, Marcus admitted. Your name came up in it. Blake's restaurants came up. Their plans for after the divorce. Can I hear it? Marcus thought about attorney-client privilege, about strategy, about whether this was a good idea. Then he thought about Amanda, who'd been married to Blake for 13 years according to Catherine's research. Who'd invested her own money in his restaurant dreams. Who was now being called bitter and pathetic by her husband's mistress. Let me ask my attorney, Marcus said. But Amanda, I want you to know, I heard your wife talking about Blake like he was some kind of prize. Like he was everything I wasn't. Successful, confident, exciting. He paused, but from what my attorney found, Blake has a pattern. This isn't his first affair with a married woman. And I'm guessing your wife isn't going to be his last. Amanda was quiet for a long moment. I was married to him for 13 years, she finally said. 13 years, and I thought we were happy. We built those restaurants together. I did all the initial branding and marketing myself before we could afford to hire people. I worked 70-hour weeks right alongside him. Her voice hardened. Then I found out about the affairs. Plural, multiple married women over the course of 5 years. All convinced they were special, that their connection with Blake was different, that he was their soulmate. Marcus felt something shift in his understanding. What's his pattern? He asked. He finds someone who's unhappy or vulnerable. Someone in a marriage that's hit a rough patch. He love bombs them, expensive dinners, constant attention, grand romantic gestures. He makes them feel like they're the center of the universe. Amanda's voice was bitter now. Then once they've blown up their life for him, left their husband, filed for divorce, made themselves available, he gets bored and moves on to someone new. The only reason he's still with Diana is that she's useful right now, Amanda continued. She has a marketing agency. She has professional connections. She can help promote his restaurants. But the minute she's divorced and available full-time, the minute she's no longer exciting and forbidden, he'll lose interest. Marcus thought about Diana's confidence on that recording. Her certainty that Blake was different, that their love was real, that she'd finally found someone who appreciated her. Have you told her this? Marcus asked. I tried. 2 weeks ago, I saw her at Blake's restaurant, Ember. I approached her in the bathroom and tried to warn her. I told her about his pattern, about the other women, about how he operates. Amanda sighed. She looked at me like I was something she'd stepped in. Said I was a scorned ex-wife trying to sabotage her happiness. Said Blake had told her all about me. How I was unstable and jealous and couldn't handle that he'd moved on. She actually laughed at me, Marcus. Then she walked out. I'm sorry, Marcus said. Don't be. I called because I wanted to warn you. We're going to face this together whether we like it or not. We're both dealing with the aftermath of their choices. Amanda paused. And Marcus? When your wife realizes Blake isn't who she thinks he is, when he gets bored with her and moves on to the next married woman, she's going to try to come back to you. Don't let her. I won't, Marcus said. Good. You deserve better than someone who would throw away a good marriage for someone like Blake. Amanda's voice softened slightly. My lawyer thinks we might be able to use information about Blake's ongoing pattern of affairs in my case. Claim it demonstrates fraudulent concealment during our divorce proceedings. Would you be willing to share that recording if it came to that? Let me talk to my attorney, Marcus said. But yes, probably. Blake doesn't get to destroy people's lives without consequences. After they hung up, Marcus sat in his studio thinking. Diana had called Amanda to gloat, to rub her victory in the face of Blake's ex-wife. The cruelty of it was stunning. His phone buzzed. Rachel Park calling. Marcus stared at the screen for a long moment, then answered. What do you want, Rachel? Marcus. Her voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. Diana is devastated. You're ruining her life over one mistake. One mistake? Marcus felt something cold settle in his voice. She was sleeping with someone else for a year. She planned an entire divorce strategy designed to manipulate me. She called me pathetic and naive. You stood right there and laughed while she said it. You weren't supposed to hear that conversation. But I did. And now I know exactly who Diana is. And who you are. Marcus, she's my best friend. She's scared and confused and she's calculating and strategic and perfectly aware of what she's doing, Marcus interrupted. And you helped her plan it. Did you know she was having an affair, Rachel? Did you know for the whole year, or did she just tell you recently? Silence. You knew, Marcus said flatly. You knew the whole time. You helped her cover for it. Those San Francisco trips that were supposedly for clients, you knew she was really going to Napa with Blake. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You're complicit. You helped my wife plan my destruction. Marcus stood up from his desk, pacing his studio. How does Tom feel about all this? Does your husband know you've been helping Diana cheat and plot divorces? Don't you dare bring Tom into this. Why not? Diana brought Blake into our marriage. You helped her do it. Why should Tom be protected from the consequences of your choices? You're being completely unreasonable, Rachel said, her voice rising. Diana made a mistake, yes, but she loves you. She wants to work things out. You're the one who filed for divorce without even trying counseling or. She doesn't love me, Marcus said quietly. She loves what she thought I could provide for her. And when she found someone who could provide more, she decided to trade up. That's not love, Rachel. That's a business transaction. You're going to regret this, Rachel said coldly. When you're alone and miserable and Diana's happy with Blake, you're going to wish you'd given her another chance. Maybe, Marcus said, but I doubt it, because at least I'll know I'm alone with someone who has integrity. Goodbye, Rachel. He hung up before she could respond. His phone rang again immediately. He blocked the number. Then he blocked Diana's number too. She could communicate through Catherine from now on. Marcus was done being accessible to people who only wanted to manipulate him. He spent the rest of the day editing, losing himself in the work. The documentary was taking shape beautifully. The immigrant stories woven together into something larger, something that spoke to resilience and hope in the complexity of building a life in a new country. Mr. Nguyen's story was particularly powerful. He'd been a doctor in Vietnam, trained at the university in Saigon. After the war, his medical degree meant nothing in America. He'd worked as a dishwasher, a janitor, a delivery driver. Saved every penny for 20 years. Finally opened his pho restaurant at age 55. Now, at 78, he employed 15 people. 3 of them were recent Vietnamese immigrants. He'd helped 2 of his employees apply for citizenship. He'd sponsored 4 refugee families. America gave me nothing, Mr. Nguyen had said during his interview, his English still heavily accented after 48 years. But America gave me the chance to build something. That's everything. Marcus watched that interview clip again, tears streaming down his face. This was why he did this work. Not for money or status or recognition. Because these stories mattered. Because these people mattered. Because bearing witness to their struggles and triumphs was a privilege. Diana would never understand that. She saw his work as poverty and principles, as choosing artistic integrity over financial success. But she was wrong. Marcus wasn't poor. He had nearly $2 million in investments. He just chose not to live ostentatiously. He chose to live according to his values, to make work that meant something, to build a life he could be proud of. And that choice, that deliberate, thoughtful choice, wasn't weakness. It was strength. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you haven't, because the ending of this story will blow your mind. And drop a comment below telling me what you think Marcus should do next. The next 2 weeks were psychological warfare. Diana's lawyer, an aggressive attorney named Richard Keller, filed motion after motion. Emergency requests for spousal support, demands to access Marcus's financial records, claims that Marcus was hiding assets, allegations that he'd been financially controlling during the marriage. Each filing was more desperate than the last, and each one was systematically denied once Catherine presented the evidence. The recording of Diana's conversation with Rachel, the documentation showing Diana had full access to all accounts, the timeline proving Marcus had supported her business financially and emotionally. But the real battle wasn't happening in court. It was happening in the court of public opinion. Diana had launched a social media campaign that would have been impressive if it wasn't so transparently manipulative. Carefully worded posts about unexpected heartbreak and discovering who someone really is when things get difficult. Photos of her looking sad and reflective, always beautifully lit, always perfectly composed. Posted at strategic times for maximum engagement. Comments flooded in from friends offering support, asking what happened, expressing shock that Marcus would throw away 9 years over a misunderstanding. Marcus stayed silent. Catherine had advised him to say nothing publicly, and he followed that advice religiously. He set his social media accounts to private, deleted Twitter entirely, stopped checking Instagram. But his silence seemed to enrage Diana more than any response would have. 5 days after being served, she showed up at his documentary co-op. Marcus was in a meeting with a client, a nonprofit organization wanting a short film about their youth mentorship program, when Patricia knocked on his door. "Marcus, I'm sorry to interrupt." Patricia's expression was carefully neutral. "Diana is in the lobby. She's insisting she needs to see you. Should I call security?" Marcus excused himself from the meeting and walked to the lobby. Diana stood near the entrance, and she looked terrible. Or rather, she'd carefully cultivated the appearance of looking terrible. Dark circles under her eyes that might have been makeup. Her hair slightly mussed instead of perfectly styled. Wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater instead of her usual polished outfits. The performance of devastation. Several of his colleagues were in the lobby, pretending to work but obviously watching. "Marcus, please," Diana said when she saw him, her voice breaking. "Can we just talk? 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Please." "Diana, my attorney has advised me not to speak with you directly. Any communication needs to go through the lawyers. I'm your wife." Her voice rose, tears streaming down her face now. "We've been together for 9 years and you won't even give me 5 minutes? What happened to the man I married? The kind, compassionate man who—" "You're my wife who spent a year planning to divorce me while sleeping with someone else," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm and clinical. "You're my wife who called me pathetically naive and said I was choosing poverty over success. You're my wife who had a detailed strategy to manipulate me through legal proceedings and catch me when I was emotionally vulnerable." He met her eyes directly. "So no, I won't give you 5 minutes. I gave you 9 years. That was enough. I made a mistake." Diana was sobbing now, full-body sobs that looked almost genuine. "Almost. I was confused. I was scared. I didn't know what I wanted. But I know now. I want you. I want our marriage. Please, Marcus, please don't do this." Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but distant pity mixed with disgust. 3 weeks ago, seeing her cry would have destroyed him, would have made him want to fix everything, make her happy, take away her pain. Now it just seemed like another tactic, another manipulation, another performance. "Goodbye, Diana," he said quietly, and turned to walk back to his meeting. "You're going to regret this." She screamed after him, and suddenly the tears shut off like a faucet. Her voice went hard, vicious. "When you're alone and miserable, when you realize what you threw away, you're going to remember this moment and wish you'd given me another chance. You're going to regret this for the rest of your pathetic life." Marcus kept walking. Behind him, he heard Patricia calmly ask security to escort Diana from the building. The scene had been witnessed by half the co-op. Within an hour, the full story had spread through their professional circle. But the version that spread wasn't Diana's carefully constructed victim narrative. Too many people had heard too much of the confrontation. Too many people knew Marcus too well to believe he was the villain. Word traveled fast about the recording, about the year-long affair, about the manipulation strategy. About Diana showing up and performing devastation before her mask slipped and the real cruelty showed through. Diana's social media narrative was falling apart. People were asking questions, demanding details. Some of their mutual friends had started reaching out to Marcus directly, asking for his side of the story. He didn't respond to those either. Stayed silent, let Diana's own actions speak for themselves. But she wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. 3 days later, Marcus received legal notice that Diana was claiming he'd been emotionally abusive during their marriage. That he'd been controlling with money, refused to support her business dreams, kept her financially dependent on him, and prioritized his work over their relationship. It was a complete fabrication, easily disproven by bank records showing she had full access to all accounts. By emails where Marcus had encouraged her to start her business. By documentation showing he'd done her website and marketing videos for free. By testimony from people who'd seen them together and witnessed his support. But it was a signal. Diana was willing to lie, to make false accusations, to destroy his reputation if that's what it took to win. Catherine filed a counter-claim immediately, attached the recording again, added new documentation about Diana's business success, proving she wasn't financially dependent or controlled. Included screenshots of her social media posts bragging about clients and contracts and revenue. She's getting desperate, Catherine said during one of their strategy meetings. That's good for us. Desperate people make mistakes. They overplay their hand. What's our next move? Marcus asked. We're going to depose Blake, put him under oath and ask him about the affair, the timeline, whether he knew Diana was married when they started sleeping together. We're also going to subpoena his phone records and emails. I have a feeling there are some very interesting communications there. Catherine pulled up files on her computer. My investigator also found something useful. Diana's marketing agency did do work for Blake's restaurants, about 8 months before the affair started, according to the contracts. Her agency created a social media campaign for Ember when it was launching. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. So they had a professional relationship before it became a personal one. Which means Blake might have ethical issues with his restaurant partnership agreements. Many business contracts have clauses about inappropriate relationships with vendors and service providers. And Diana might have issues too. Sleeping with a client is generally considered unprofessional in the marketing world. Catherine leaned back in her chair. But here's what I really need you to prepare for, Marcus. Diana is going to make one last play. I don't know exactly what it'll be yet, but there's going to be a moment, probably soon, where she tries something dramatic. Something designed to make you doubt yourself, feel guilty, question whether you're being too harsh. Her expression was serious. You need to be ready. You need to remember why you're doing this. Not for revenge, for protection, for justice, to make sure she doesn't get to destroy you and walk away like it never happened. I'm ready, Marcus said. But he wasn't, not really. The play came exactly 1 week later. Marcus was working late at home, editing the final sequences of his documentary, trying to perfect the closing montage, when his doorbell rang. It was after 9 o'clock. Dark outside, cold November rain falling steadily. Marcus checked the security camera on his phone. Diana stood on his porch, alone. No car visible on the street. She looked small, vulnerable, soaked from the rain. Her hair plastered to her face, her clothes dripping water. Marcus's first instinct was concern. Was she okay? Had something happened? Was she hurt? Then he remembered. This was Diana. This was performance. He almost didn't answer. Almost just left her standing there in the rain. But something, curiosity maybe, or the last remnants of the man who'd loved her, made him open the door. He kept the chain lock engaged. What do you want, Diana? I know you don't want to talk to me. Her voice was different this time. No drama, no tears, just exhaustion, defeat. I know I don't have the right to ask you for anything. But I need you to know something, and then I'll go and I won't bother you again. I promise. You have 2 minutes. She took a deep breath, water dripping from her hair onto the porch. You were right about everything. About Blake, about the affair, about me. Her voice cracked. Blake is exactly who Amanda said he is. He's been pulling away ever since your divorce got complicated. Ever since he found out you actually have money and resources and weren't going to just roll over. Marcus said nothing, just watched her. Last night he told me he thinks we should take a break. Diana's composure was cracking now, real emotion showing through for the first time. Until both our divorces are finalized. Until things calm down, which means he's already looking for the next woman. The next exciting affair, the next person he can use and discard. She looked up at Marcus, rain and tears mixing on her face. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was greedy and stupid and bored. I threw away someone who actually loved me for someone who was just using me for entertainment. And now I have nothing. No marriage, no boyfriend. My business is falling apart because Rachel and I can't stop fighting. I'm maxed out on 3 credit cards. I'm staying at a hotel because Rachel won't let me crash at her place anymore. Diana's voice broke completely. I'm not asking for another chance. I know I don't deserve that. I know I hurt you in ways I can't even fully understand. I know I was cruel and calculating in everything you said I was. She wiped at her face with shaking hands. I'm just asking, did I ever mean anything to you? Was any of it real? Or is it really that easy for you to just turn off 9 years like they never happened? This was the moment Catherine had warned him about. The guilt play, the vulnerability card, the emotional manipulation designed to make him doubt himself, feel cruel, want to comfort her. Marcus looked at his wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife, and chose his words carefully. "You meant everything to me, Diana. For 9 years, you were my whole world. I would have done anything for you. Given you anything. Been anything you needed me to be." He paused, holding her gaze. "But the woman I loved doesn't exist. She was a character you played, a role you performed because it got you what you wanted at the time." Diana's face crumpled. "The real you is the woman on that recording," Marcus continued quietly. "Laughing about manipulating me, calling my kindness weakness, planning to exploit me for money, mocking the work I love and the values I live by. That's who you really are. And that woman? I don't love her. I don't even know her." He met her eyes. "So no, I haven't turned off 9 years. I'm mourning 9 years, but I'm mourning something that was never real. I'm grieving a fiction, and that's on you, Diana. That's your doing, not mine. I did love you," she whispered. "Maybe not the way I should have. Maybe not enough, but I did love you, Marcus. Some part of me did. You loved what I gave you. The stability, the support, the safety of having someone who would never hurt you or betray you or make you feel small." Marcus's voice was gentle now, but firm. "That's not the same as loving me. That's loving what I could do for you." He started to close the door. "Goodbye, Diana. I hope you figure out what actually makes you happy. I hope you learn to value things that matter, integrity and honesty and treating people with respect. But it's not my job to teach you anymore. It's not my job to save you or fix you or help you grow up. Marcus, please, I'm done," he said quietly. "We're done. Move on." He closed the door softly, hearing her sob on the other side. Part of him, the part that had loved her for 9 years, that had built a life with her, that had imagined growing old together, wanted to open the door again. Wanted to comfort her, wanted to make the pain stop. But he didn't. Instead, he walked back upstairs to his studio, sat down at his desk, and texted Catherine. She came by. Tried the heartbroken, desperate act. "Blake dumped her apparently. I didn't bite." The response came immediately. "Good. Her lawyer called today. They want to settle. She'll accept standard division, half the condo equity, no spousal support, no claims on your future earnings. She's cutting her losses." Marcus stared at the text. "What about Blake?" He typed back. "My investigator saw him at a restaurant last night with another woman. Looked very cozy. I can send you photos if you want them, but honestly, I don't think you need them." Catherine was right. Marcus didn't need them. Blake was Diana's problem now. Or rather, he wasn't anyone's problem anymore. He'd done what he always did, created chaos, enjoyed the drama, and moved on to the next conquest. Marcus set his phone down and returned to his editing. The documentary wouldn't finish itself. And Sundance was in 11 weeks. The divorce was finalized 8 weeks later, just before Thanksgiving. The settlement was exactly what Catherine had predicted. Diana got $315,000 from the condo sale, half the equity after the mortgage was paid off. She got $8,000 from their joint savings. She got the newer car because Marcus had paid for it mostly himself and was willing to let her have it. She got nothing else. No spousal support, no claim on his future documentary earnings, no reimbursement for business expenses, no furniture except what she'd purchased herself. Nothing. The judge had read the transcript of Diana's recorded conversation, had reviewed the evidence of her affair and her manipulation strategy, had been visibly unimpressed with her claims of emotional abuse and financial control. On the day the divorce was finalized, Marcus sat in the courthouse hallway while Catherine handled the final paperwork inside. Diana was there with Richard Keller, sitting at the opposite end of the hall. They didn't look at each other. When Catherine emerged with the signed documents, Marcus stood and walked toward the exit. He had to pass Diana to get there. As he did, she spoke for the first time in weeks. "I hope you're happy, Marcus. I hope it was worth it." He stopped, turned to look at her. She looked older somehow, harder, the softness he'd once loved completely gone, replaced by bitter edges. "It was worth not spending the rest of my life with someone who saw me as a mark instead of a partner," Marcus said quietly. "It was worth discovering the truth before I wasted any more years. So yes, Diana, it was worth it." He walked out into the cold November air, his breath misting in front of him. His phone buzzed immediately. Texts from his father, from David, from Patricia, all congratulating him, all expressing relief that it was over. He responded briefly to each one, thanking them. Then he did something he hadn't done in 3 months. He went to his favorite coffee shop, the one with the good window seats overlooking the street, and ordered a ridiculously expensive latte. $6 for coffee. Diana would have called it wasteful. But Marcus wasn't married to Diana anymore. He sat by the window and watched people rush past with shopping bags and umbrellas, preparing for Thanksgiving. Normal life, normal concerns. He pulled out his phone and opened the calendar app. January 16th, Sundance Film Festival premiere, Park City, Utah. He'd be there alone. No Diana beside him for photos. No partner to share the moment with. Just Marcus and his film and the families whose stories he'd told. Somehow that felt right. This achievement was his, undiluted by someone else's expectations or diminished by their dismissiveness. His vision, his work, his voice. His phone rang. Catherine Liu. Just wanted to check in, she said. How are you holding up? I'm okay, Marcus said. And he meant it. Better than okay, actually. I feel free. Good, that's the goal. Catherine paused. Marcus, can I give you some advice? Not as your lawyer, but as someone who's been through this herself. Of course. Take some time before you date again. Process everything that happened. Learn the lessons you need to learn about who you are and what you actually want in a partner. Her voice was warm now, almost maternal. And when you're ready, find someone who loves you for who you are, not what you can provide. Those people exist, I promise. Thank you, Catherine, Marcus said. For everything. You didn't just handle my divorce. You helped me remember who I am. After the call, Marcus sat for a long time, his coffee growing cold. He thought about the man he'd been 9 years ago, young, optimistic, believing that love and trust were enough to build a life on. Believing that if you were kind enough, good enough, supportive enough, people would value you. He thought about the man he was now, wiser, more cautious, but not broken. Wounded, yes. Changed, yes, but not destroyed. Diana had tried to destroy him. Had tried to take everything she thought he had. But she'd never known about the inheritance. Had never understood that his real value wasn't in his assets but in his character. His integrity, his capacity to create meaningful work and treat people with respect. She'd called his kindness weakness. She'd been completely wrong. Real strength wasn't in being cruel or calculating. Real strength was in being kind even when you had the power to be cruel. It was in choosing integrity even when dishonesty would be easier. It was in protecting yourself without losing your humanity in the process. Marcus had been tested in ways he'd never imagined possible. He'd discovered betrayal, documented it, protected himself legally and financially, and walked away from someone who'd treated him like a tool to be used and discarded. He'd done it all without violence, without destroying anyone's reputation beyond what they'd done to themselves, without losing sight of who he was at his core. That was real power.